Alhamdulillah. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. Wa salatu wa salam ala khatam al-anbiya, ashraf al-mursaleen, wa ala alihi wa ashabi ajma'in, amma ba'd. فنبدأ اليوم إن شاء الله. We begin today with the matan of Zad al-Mustaqni' in the Kitab al-Salah, in the book of the prayer, under the chapter of praying in jama'ah, in congregation. Here, the Muallif will now discuss three things. So I'm going to give you the subcategory. This is not in the matan. This is for you to organize your notes. Right? One, what la tasih, what the prayer is not acceptable behind which type of imam. We talked about the category of the imams themselves, but now we're talking about conditions. Then, what there is kiraha on. The next category is which type of person leading it is makruh, it is disliked to pray behind. And then what there is jawaz upon. What is jaiz, it's permissible. We talked about the sifat of the imam. We talked about earlier in the durus what type of person should lead the salah and who has more right to lead, and about the fact that the imam should be those that know the most Quran, but more importantly those that understand the ahkam of the salah, that don't invalidate and so on. But now we're talking about those behind whom. So the first subcategory here is those لا تصح خلف المحدث ولا متنجس يعلم ذلك. طيب. So the first category is it salah behind the one who does not have the state of tahar, meaning he is in a state of hadath. Salah behind such an imam is invalid. Tayyib? What does that mean? If there is an imam and who does not have wudu, and here the muallif he mentions يعلم ذلك, that he knows that, right? Because we'll talk about a situation where the imam may not have known. Tayyib? But the first is the imam knows he is in a state of najasa, he is in a state of state of hadath, right? Or he has najasa on him. Both categories we're going to talk about. Mutanajjis here being he has najasa either ala badnihi, on his badan, or ala thawbihi, on his clothes, or ala al-makan of salah, or on the place of salah, and he's ya'lam, he knows, but he still goes forward to lead the salah. Salah behind such an imam is not valid. Not for the imam and not for the people following him. Tayyib. So now we covered two cases. One is salah behind an imam who is in a state of hadath. And the second is salah behind an imam who has najasa, mutanajjis, he has filth on him. Tayyib. Now, this is why it's very important to build a dars bab al bab, yani chapter on chapter. What is hadath? We discussed this already in the earlier durus. You should know hadath al-akbar, hadath al-asghar. What is najasa? Mughallada, mutawassita, mukhaffafa. You should know, because we covered those above already. If you miss those, this is the good thing about recording, go back and watch them. So, in this situation where the imam knows his salah is invalid and everybody behind them, what if the people behind the imam do not know? Okay? Meaning, you go for salah and there is some munafiq, may Allah protect us all, and he knows he doesn't have wudu and he goes and leads salah. I don't know what kind of a person does that. But as many imam and ulama have written, that somebody knowing that wudu is a shart for salah and knowing that they do not have wudu leads the salah or prays even, that this is kufr. And may Allah protect us. So, khair, in this case, the people behind the imam that do not know and they never find out, their salah is valid. Why? Because they are not mukallaf, they don't know. If they made salah behind such an imam, knowing that he is in such a state, may Allah protect us. Let's say a guy goes to the bathroom and goes straight to go lead salah, and people are like, who cares? And they go and pray behind him. Yeah, their salah is also invalid now. Now, and this is in the shuruh and stuff, I'm summarizing from a lot of shuruh, right? What if there is a case where there is a zalim, and an oppressor, who is a leader, and he has najasa on him, or he is in a state of hadath, but he's such an oppressor, he forces the people to make salah behind him, or he will kill them, for example. And these situations have occurred. Then what do there? They pray behind him, but they repeat their salah. Because the salah is invalid, but they pray just not to get killed. Right? So these are cases where the imam knows and the people know. Or the imam knows and the people never find out. Tayyib. فَإِن جَهِلَ, what if the imam does not know? He is jahil at the moment of it. Not that he doesn't know what wudu is, but let's say he assumed he had wudu, and he goes to lead salah, and he's praying, and he does not know, and he continues until he finishes the salah. And the people behind the imam, they do not know, and they finish the salah behind the imam. Okay? So now, what are the two cases we're discussing now, right? The two cases are either being in a state of hadath, whether akbar or asghar, or the other two are the state where you have najasa on you. Okay? Now, these cases have subcategories. We discussed already if they know. This subcategory is the imam does not know. Maybe he got najasa on his clothes and he forgot about it. Sincerely. And he's making salah, and during salah he remembers. Or he didn't have wudu, or he needed to do ghusl, and he started to lead salah, and during salah he remembered. In this case, what must he do? There is no salah. Walk away. You're not breaking anything. There's no taslim. Why? Because a shart from the shurut of salah, a condition, a precondition from the preconditions of salah is invalidated. Whether it is due to hadath or najasa. Tayyib. Now we get into further subcategories. And this is very important because I know sometimes when we go over these durus, people are like, why are you going all these details? But this might happen to you. You may not think that this will happen to you, but trust me, in lead in of salawat, or even just go to areas where people push you up front, and you will run into these situations. Right? So, one situation is, there is najasa, and you realize it. And you're able to remove that najasa without exposing your awrah, or without leaving the qibla, without your harakat being so much that you seem to be outside of the salah. Here, when you realize if you remove the najasa, your salah and the salah of the people behind you is fine. And the dalil for that is the hadith of Jibreel alayhi salam, where he came to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam during salah, and Rasulullah removed his shoes during salah. It is from the sunnah to make salah with shoes. You can make salah without shoes. It's not like you have to make salah with shoes. Like some people, they think like this is like a demarcation where you must do. No. Especially if you cannot bend your toes in the sujood, in the shoes you have, then you take them off. Because your toes should face the qibla. But if you can bend your toes and your shoes are clean, it is from the sunnah. Make your salah with shoes on, right? So here Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam was praying with his shoes on. During salah he took off his shoes. So the Sahaba radiallahu anhum, being those that are obedient to the sunnah, they didn't during salah they all took their shoes off. So Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam after salah he asked them, why did you do that? They said, because O Messenger of Allah, we saw you do it. Alayhi salatu wassalam. So he explained to them that I did it because Jibreel informed me during the salah that there is something najis on your shoes, so I removed it. But regularly, other than this and other ahadith, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam be khalif, be opposite to others, from the Yahud and so on, that don't pray with their shoes, pray with your shoes. So if your shoes are clean, nothing wrong with praying with them. But if you realize you have najasa, you take it off. So here from this dalil, from this proof, we derive the hukam that if you started the salah with najasa and you took it off when you realized, your salah is valid. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam here did not tell them repeat your salah, and he did not repeat his own salah. But this is when you didn't know and you're able to remove it as soon as you realize. Tayyib. What if you realized it and you were like, I'm too embarrassed, I'm just going to continue salah? Then your salah is invalid and the sin of everybody's salah is on your head. May Allah protect us. Leading salah is not easy. So here you have now another case scenario. If the people behind the imam realized that he had najasa, they see najasa on him, and they did not remind him, yeah, until the end of the salah, then their salah also becomes invalid. Why? Because here they had the ability to remind the imam. They are not free from that responsibility then. Right? So some of the ai said that they would say Subhanallah. Yeah? And the imam then should, hopefully, if he's intelligent, he kind of tries to figure out what it is and he figures it out. Other ai said they can even tell him. You have al-najasa. You can tell him. Why? Because if you do not, your salah is batil anyway. So, khair, the safer opinion is that he says Subhanallah. Why? Because Kalam ibn Adam, the words that are not from the Quran or Adhkar and so on, invalidate the salah as well. So, here, these case scenarios play out. Tayyib, if the imam does not realize this scenario until the salah has finished and the people have left. Right now, you make salah, you finish, and after salah you realize, man, I didn't have wudu. Or man, I woke up, I came straight, I forgot I need to do ghusl. I don't know how that happens, but it has happened with people. So, right? Or after salah you realize, oh man, I have najasa on me, or so on. In these scenarios, what should be done? In this, the ai and ulama have said that the imam must repeat his salah, but not the people behind the imam. The imam must repeat his salah, but not the people behind the imam. There are many adillah given, where they talked about Allah has forgiven the mistakes and so on. But the very clear dalil, and I read this, and I couldn't find the source until I spent some time researching, which is the athar, the narration from Umar and Uthman radiyallahu anhuma, where they made the salah not realizing they were in a state of janaba, and then when they realized, they repeated their salah but did not order the people to. I found this in the Musannaf of Abdul Razzaq, and I saw both of the asanid are sahih. So this is the clear evidence for this ruling. So this is in case you finish your salah in a state of not having tahara, in a state of tahara. You're in a state of hadath, right? Because here's janaba. And you finish the salah not realizing, and here the imam now has to repeat his salah, but not the people behind the imam. Their salah is valid. Tayyib. What about the one who has najasa? In the same case scenario, the madhab is that the same hukam goes. Najasa, the same hukam goes. Tayyib. Now, if the imam knows, or some of the followers know, then the salah is invalid. Right? Meaning, if the imam knows that he needs a state of hadath, we discussed this already. And the same is true from najasa. Tayyib. The next, so this was actually only two case scenarios, but the sub-case scenarios went further, right? The next is what? La wala imamatul ummi. The one who is ignorant, the one who is illiterate. What is the meaning of illiteracy in the Sharia? We do not mean that they're unable to read or write. That is the general lugha, in language, that is the meaning. Ummi here, meaning somebody who's illiterate, cannot read or write. But istalahan, in fiqh, the technical terminology of fiqh, when we talk about ummi here, we're talking about somebody who is unable to recite Surah Al-Fatiha correctly. If he has problem in the rest of the Quran, that's not what we mean. But they're unable to recite Surah Al-Fatiha correctly. And this is what the Muallif, he explained here as well. وَهُوَ مَنْ لَا يُحْسَنُ الْفَاتِحَةِ. Tayyib. If somebody cannot recite Fatiha correctly, I don't mean that they are not a qari, yani their voice is not beautiful, or yani they have some issues with some of the mudud not being quite as perfect as they should be, or so on. No. But if they are unable to recite Al-Fatiha to the minimum of its correct recitation, right? Yani the shadda should be correct. Yani you shouldn't skip ayat or flip words or things like this. Then salah behind such a person is not valid. So salah behind such a person is not valid. Or somebody who yudghim, who makes idgham fiha. What does it mean, idgham? Not talking about idgham in tajweed. And now you're going to skip ahkam of tajweed. La. Idgham, to crash, right? Linguistically. Here meaning in Al-Fatiha, he mixes two of the letters of Al-Fatiha together where they should not be mixed. Malik Yawmiddin or Malik Yawmiddin, they're both correct, right? But if somebody goes Malaka, right? Now this here, he has squished it together, right? Where now there was no idgham in the ahkam of tajweed, where he has mixed letters together, then this makes it invalid. Oh, or ma la yadghum, or when there is an idgham and he doesn't make the idgham. Ar-Rahman, he says Al-Rahman. Right? Can you make Al-Rahman? La. You know, when we give the shahada, we say ashhadu alla ilaha. All these people, you say the shahada wrong. It's ashhadu an la ilaha. La. And here, learn the ahkam before you come correct us. So, in the Fatiha, when somebody either does an idgham when there is no idgham, they mix letters when they shouldn't be, or when there are letters that should be put together in a way and they don't do it. And all three of these categories now, the one who cannot recite Al-Fatiha at all correctly, and he skips lines. And I've prayed in masajid, big masajid, in other countries, and the imam skipped an ayah in Al-Fatiha, nobody corrected him. And you're like sitting in the back going like, am I crazy or is everybody else crazy? And after salah, you're like, you skipped the whole ayah in Al-Fatiha, and they're like, Wahhabi, get out of here, right? So, in those situations, or in situations where they in Al-Fatiha crash letters together that shouldn't, or don't that should, in all three of these, the salah behind such a person is not valid. أو يبدل حرفا, يعني, or they change a letter out. Now, again, you're learning, don't jump where you don't know how to jump. Right? Sometimes there's difference of qira'at. Sirat, zira. Right? Now this is not that you're mixing up the letter. There is a different way to pronounce mutawatiran an al-Nabi alayhi salatu wasalam, from the accepted qira'at, from the ahruf al-sab'a and so on. So sometimes it is acceptable. Sometimes you may feel that the letter is not right, but maybe you're wrong, right? Be careful, right? Maybe it's not perfect, but within the acceptable range. But if somebody says, for example, Rahman, I've heard this. Rahman, Rahman, right? Now here, they've changed the ha into a kha, very clearly. Not that their ha is not deep enough or this or no, they changed the letter out. Here, it also invalidates the salah. Or somebody who makes major mistakes, where it changes the meaning. Mistakes that change the meaning. Let's say if you say غير المغضوب عليهم أو عليهم. This is difference of qira'at. It doesn't change the meaning. It does not change the meaning. It's still upon them, right? But if you say lahum, instead of عليهم lahum, not on them, for them, this changes the meaning. The Quran lak or alayk, not the same thing, right? So here, if such mistakes are made, this type of person also, salah behind them is not acceptable illa bimithlihi. Now, this is a very interesting aspect of it. Except for others, they're the same way. Okay? Let's say you go to a country, not trying to mention anybody in particular, but they make the bod into zwad. Maghzubi, wala zaleen. And they are qurra. They're a'imma in masajid and madaris, and they're like, wala zaleen. And you're like, Bald? No? So, right? Now here, it is the responsibility of that imam that he recites it correctly. And if me and you go pray behind somebody like that, and we may not be ulama, but we know enough that this is there's no zwad in the Arabic language, right? Not that I know of. Yeah? It's not from any of the qira'at. Sheikh Dursa, right? Alright, just making sure, right? But there are entire regions of the Muslim world that pronounce it that way, and they will fight you if you say it otherwise. Our salah behind the imam is invalid. We have to repeat our salah. Sorry guys. Right? But if there's an ignorant person there who also doesn't know any better, and the whole masjid doesn't know any better, then khalas, what can you do? You cannot bring qurra unknowingly from other countries, right? I mean, like, you go to a village and that's all they've been taught, then the one who should have learned has the responsibility of the sin. But the people's salah is valid because they don't have a choice. If they know better, they need to either repeat the salah or go to a Ahlul Hadith masjid, no, I'm just kidding, or go to another masjid or do something different. But if they don't know, they're all like this, right? Sometimes you go to a farmer area and 10 guys get together to go make salah and none of them recite al-Fatiha correctly. So here, khalas, because they're ajiz, they don't have the ability, we say their salah is valid. But for those who know, then salah behind somebody like this is invalid. And then the muallaf, he says, in qadara ala islahihi, if they're able to correct it, la tasih salatuhu. If they're able to correct and they don't, then the salah is not valid. But if they don't know, if they're all ignorant, then khalas, their salah is acceptable. Tayyib. What tukrahu? Now we get to another category. What is that? Right? What did we say earlier? La tasih. What is haram? What is unacceptable? What is not valid? Those type of salawat. Now we get into what is makruh, karah. Of the Imam al-Lahan. Al-Lahan is somebody who constantly makes mistakes, but those mistakes are not major enough to invalidate the salah. Okay? Now, if somebody can recite al-Fatiha upon its minimum correct pronunciation, right? Meaning they didn't switch letters out, they didn't change the meaning and so on, salah behind them is valid. And their salah is valid. Even if they make 100 mistakes in the rest of the recitation, the salah is valid. Right? But if somebody constantly and continuously messes with letters, makes mistakes, then it's best to put somebody else in the front for salah. There is kiraha here, right? Now, you may not have that ability, right? You may go live in another state and the masjid you go to doesn't have a qari and they don't have an imam and they have one guy that leads salah and his Fatiha is correct but he makes mistakes the whole time. Now, your salah is valid. You make your salah, you try to give your nasiha, that's it. But if you go and the imam is reading al-Fatiha and in it he says Siratul Ladina or something like this, where now i'raban you've changed from mansoob to marfu' and there is issues or so on, then if it is not from the acceptable qira'at, sometimes the i'rab are also different between the qira'at, and if it is something that invalidates a meaning and so on like this, then your salah is invalid. But if the imam makes mistakes, your salah is valid. But this is makruh. Why would you want to put somebody who is constant in their mistakes? Right? Imam make mistakes. We don't want to be like imam makes a mistake in Taraweeh or something and khalas, you're like makruh salah behind you, khalas, I'm out, right? No, everybody makes mistakes. I make a mistake, you make mistakes, don't get too happy, right? But if somebody has a constant issue with it, then there is karaha there. Tayyib. Or fafa, or tamtam. Now these are interesting words here. Al-fafa or at-tamtam have no meaning in Arabic by itself. And that's why some people, they're like, I'm just going to pick up a translation of a book and read it. Like a fiqh book. That's all. Good luck with that, because you're not going to understand it. Right? If you don't understand the salahat and terminologies, you're not, even if you speak Arabic. Right? Here, the meaning here of al-fa is somebody who stutters with the letter fa. Tamtam is somebody who stutters with the letter ta. Okay? And these terminologies were developed because these letters were the ones that people would have a lot of problem when they have stutters. They would get stuck in that, or yani, like that. You hardly ever see anybody getting stuck with like, Could happen. But these letters developed in Arabic language because of its common use. But what is the meaning? If somebody stutters in their salah behind them is permissible. Why? Because it's not their fault. Right? Somebody has a stuttering problem. But if you have somebody who doesn't have that, then there's karaha in having them constantly lead salah, to be the imam and so on, because the recitation of the Quran will not be wadih, clear. Right? So if somebody has a stutter and you're at the park, you're going somewhere and they lead salah once in a while, nothing wrong with that. But they should not be made as a regular imam. There is karaha there. Okay? And if there are people who don't stutter, then you should put them forward to lead the salah. Unless the brother who stutters is the only one that knows Al-Fatiha correctly or something, or the only one knows the ahkam of salah correctly, those situations are there, but this is generally. Tayyib. So how many of the karahat have we mentioned now? 3. Tayyib. Or if somebody does not pronounce the letter correctly. Right? So we talked about earlier those who would change the meaning in Al-Fatiha. For example, in some cultures, I'm not going to mention which ones, the bod is made into a ta, right? Or the va is made into a ta, right? Tahir would become zahir, so on, right? In some cultures, the jeen is made into a geen. Not going to mention which cultures, don't guess, right? So it would be Gama and Masjid and so on. Some cultures, the Qaf is made into a Alif, right? So in these situations, if the person recites Al-Fatiha correctly, and if they mess up in Al-Fatiha, then no. But if they recite Al-Fatiha correctly, and I've seen this. There used to be an Imam, may Allah have mercy on him, he passed away. I'm not going to mention the masjid, but I used to go to that masjid. I used to live close to it. I don't live close to it anymore. And he was Egyptian. And when he would begin his salah in Al-Fatiha, he would be good. But a little bit into the Quran, he would start being, ganna, and everything would just start coming out. I remember he would give khutbah. In the beginning of the khutbah, he was good. But then, mashallah, when his accent would overpower him, he would be like, hug, like hajj. He'd be like, hug. And I didn't know Arabic at the time. And I would be like, man, this brother really needs a hug. Like, I don't know what's going on, right? And with Jannah, it would become Ganna. And I don't know if you guys know Urdu, but in the Urdu language, Ganna means sugarcane. I don't know what in Farsi. No. Okay. Ganna means sugarcane. And he would be giving khutbahs and stuff, Ganna. I'd be like, man, this brother really likes sugarcane. I'm going to go get him some. So, what happens here is, if somebody mispronounces these words, then if the Fatiha is correct, their salah would still be correct, but it becomes makruh to make salah behind such a person. Tayyib. Or if there is al-ajnabiyya, وَأَكْثَرَ اللَّهُ رَجُلْ مَاهُنَّ, if there is a woman and she is alone with a man, or in a place where there is none of her mahram with her. Okay? Then here, this is considered khalwa unless there is separation and so on. Okay? For example, let's say a brother goes to school, a university here, right? And there is a Muslim sister that goes to the same school. And now he wants to go make salah, and him and her go to the musalla, and it's just them. And I'm not saying they're praying inside, but she's behind him. But here this is khalwa. This is not permissible. The khalwa aspect is haram, but even that salah is makruh. Salah is valid because you didn't invalidate any of the shurut or ahkam or arkan or wajibat of salah, but there is karaha here. Because Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam in the hadith reported Imam Ahmad and Nasai and Ibn Majah and Ibn Hibban considered to be sahih, he said about the khalwa, if there is a man and a woman alone, the third with them is shaitan. So because of that there is karaha. أو قوما, of there is a people أكثرهم يكره يعني الإمام بالحق, or if there is a people and most of them hate the imam for a valid reason, then that salah is invalid, or it's makruh, it's karaha, it's disliked. Salah is valid, but it's disliked. طيب, so there is a couple of things, and there is the hadith we'll get into inshallah. Tirmidhi has mentioned Tabrani, Ibn Abi Shayba, and we consider to be Hasan, where he's also said about the three that are disliked or in a state and so on. But what is the, first understand the Surah Al-Mas'ala. Surah Al-Mas'ala is that if somebody is an imam, he's leading the people, and the majority, everybody will have somebody that dislikes him. I'm sure there's somebody sitting here that doesn't like me. I don't know any of you that like me, but it's okay. You don't have to like me, right? So there will be people, even if you're a Nabi, there's going to be somebody that doesn't like you. Even if you're a Sahabi, there's somebody that doesn't like you. Even if you're a alim, a wali of Allah, somebody won't like you. So it's not like you have to be loved by everybody, right? But if the majority of the congregation doesn't like this person, right? But now there is a shart here, bihaqqin, and they are on the haqq. Not that they don't like him because he's on the sunnah. Let's say I, or me or you or somebody goes to a place where the majority of the people are on bid'ah, and you're on the sunnah and they hate you, the majority doesn't like you. Why? Because you're on the haqq. Then no. Then the salah is, you should be the imam, and the salah is fine. But if they're on haqq, let's say the imam has a foul mouth, he cusses and smokes and does, and I'm not going to go to extreme cases, I'm going to go to like things that I've seen cases, right? And the people don't like him because of such a reason, right? So here, if he prays the salah correctly, he doesn't invalidate any of the shurut, the salah is correct, but it is makruh, there is karah. Okay? But I want you to understand the two conditions. One is that this should be the majority of the people, not just an individual. Sometimes an individual just doesn't like you. Maybe you stepped on their shoe or something, I don't know, right? That's not a majority, right? And sometimes the majority dislikes you, but you're on the haqq, right? That's also not the case. But if these two shurut are there, then it is something where it is makruh. For the sake of time, I'm going to try to cut down on the unusual cases. The last subcategory here is what tasih, yani tasih, what is correct, right? La tasih we had earlier, salah is invalid. Then we had karaha. Now we had the salah is valid. Here we'll mention some of those categories, and we'll mention some very interesting. And it's in the matan, I can't change it. If I offend anybody, I'm going to apologize ahead of time. Well, not really, but anyway. Wallah, tayyib. وتصيح, and it is correct. Imamatul walad zina. If somebody is born from zina, and there is a shart that will come in later, but first I'm just going to mention. Wal jundi, and the soldier. Right? Their salah is valid إِذَا سَلِمَ دِينِهُمَا. If their deen is correct, meaning that they don't have any shortcoming in their own religious practices. Tayyib. What is the meaning? If somebody is born from zina, there is a B word, but it's an indecent word, so I'm not going to use it in the English language. If somebody is born out of wedlock, right? In the Sharia, it is haram to have that kind of a relationship out of wedlock. But that child is not held accountable for it, right? So the walad zina, the child that is born out of zina, him leading salah is valid. Why? Because he did not or she did not commit that sin. In Sharia, we don't hold the child accountable for the parent's sins. There's not original sin kind of a thing here, right? as long as their own religious practices are correct, right? But if that person born from zina is a zani himself, or somebody of low moral character for other Islamic, then of course there is an issue. And depending on how bad is how serious the issue would be. But if that person in itself is religious, they're good, then we do not discredit them from leading salah. It's not makruh, it's not haram for them to lead salah as long as their religion is correct. Same is true for the soldier. Now, why the soldier? What is the zina you can understand, right? Right? You would, in a society which is more on fitrah, unlike the one we live in, where I think maybe the majority is awlad of zina nowadays, kuffar, alhamdulillah, not Muslims. But in regular society, if somebody is born out of zina, you could understand why people would be a little bit like, But the Sharia says, no, he can lead salah. It's not his fault. It wasn't his choice, right? But why the soldier? Why would a soldier be discussed here? I read up on a lot of shuruh and listened to a lot of shuyukh, and my own shaykh explained this mas'ala. From the very early times of Islam, unfortunately, a lot of soldiers would be involved in immoral or oppressive practices. Right? If we look at many of the great ai*imma, like Imam Ahmad, he was arrested. So who arrested him were soldiers, right? Not like regular people didn't go and arrest him. The people loved him. Right? Other ai*imma like An-Nabawi and Ibn Taymiyyah and Ibn Qudama and others later on were also arrested. Who arrested them? Soldiers. Sometimes khulafa and muluk, a khalifa or a king, would be oppressive. He would kill people. He would order people to be beaten that didn't deserve it. And who would carry those soldiers' orders out would be soldiers. So if a soldier in his religious practice is correct, then we do not hold that against him. Even if he was forced to do things that he shouldn't have done and so on. But if the soldier was inclined towards those things, like in many Muslim countries today, soldiers and police officers, unfortunately, are very inclined towards bribery. You take money and you can get to that checkpoint and so on. Then there is karaha, and depending on how serious it is, there could be tahreem if he's a fasiq and things like this. But if a soldier's religious practices are correct, then there's perfectly fine to make salah behind soldiers. And we see many brothers to be in the Muslim militaries that are very good. MashaAllah. Might be going to one of those countries soon, so I gotta be careful here, right? Some of them we see as tullab ilm, and we see them as people with beards making salah, not making isbal and reading Quran. Nothing wrong, mashallah, right? But because there are many throughout history that have been inclined towards oppressive practices, the ulama discussed this from a fiqh perspective, that salah behind a soldier whose religion is good is perfectly fine. It's not makruh, it's not haram. But soldiers that may be inclined towards oppressive tactics and so on, then there would be karaha, and it could lead to tahreem depending on what they do. Tayyib. I think we'll stop for today. We'll stop for today, inshallah.